You thought it was going to start, didn't you? We're very close, but we're not quite there. Welcome back to the KEVO factory. Pretty well hooking in straight after last time you saw KEVO. I've been doing some wiring, we've been doing all the little odd jobs and ticking off everything off the list. This is pretty well done now, so we can throw that one in the bin. Now we've got to make another list because things are starting to progress. Since last week, I have just been buttoning everything up. So now we have an oil feed from the block. So what I've done is I've come out of the block and I've actually teed into a pressure temp sensor. That way the sensor is now remote mounted. But also, if you were to remote mount that sensor, potentially there's no temperature reading because the oil in that line can be stagnant. So now there's constant flow behind going past the sensor, which is going to read pressure and temp. I've mounted a couple of Go Fast bits, boost control solenoids on the driver's guard down there. That's using two Raceworks brackets that fit up really nicely. I'm pretty stoked with how that worked out. They're both being used for CO2 boost control. One of those solenoids is an up solenoid, the other is a down solenoid, and right next to it I have a dome pressure sensor. We've plumbed the blow-off out in Raceworks 240 series hose, that's in dash 4. And plumbing wise, apart from the CO2, everything is done. I have got a CO2 bottle to mount up. This is gonna go up under the dash there, just with a roll cage mount. That one is gonna run some fittings down to those solenoids down the front. And we've also done heaps of wiring. Miller is hiding in the passenger seat there somewhere. He's the one that did the little hot start for the crank. We have now got power to everything. So we've got the battery mounted in the boot. We've got double O, B and S cable running all the way to the front to a bulkhead on the firewall. It then splits off to power the Nexus R5, Haltech PD16, then it goes down to the starter motor and to the front of the alternator. So we've got powers for everything, we've got grounds for everything. Hello, Miller.
How you doing?
And now we're basically, as I said, ticking the jobs off the list, and Miller's currently doing some headlight things. My mate Westy popped around too. He made up a sweet bracket for a brake switch off the pedal box there. That is looking very tidy. We've also installed the wiper motor in the wiper cowl there. You will see the car running by the end of this episode, have my word. And if I don't, then I'll do a crazy merch discount or something for you.
Free merch for everyone. Give the car away.
Give the car away, no thanks. So let's just hook in and tick the jobs off the list and then fire this bad boy up. Having a massive intercooler is all well and good, but unfortunately the headlights don't fit. So we have to get a bit custom and melt some plastic for that. Oh, optimum clearance. Rule number one of creating content, make sure you film the content, otherwise you've got nothing to show for it. We've made heaps of progress and basically just been hooking in, nothing you haven't seen already. We've now got the fuel system finalised, so the surge tank, which was made by Rogan Industries. I've fitted that up. We've got our Go Fast Bits FXD fuel pressure regulator, which plumbs back into the surge tank. And everything's been plumbed using Raceworks AN fittings. Shout out to a bloke named Dave, who is a frequent commenter on our Facebook post. He's a very knowledgeable bloke, and he's shared some knowledge on one of our posts recently about the surge tank. I really do appreciate the input from blokes like Dave, and even yourself, if you are knowledgeable at race car things and you got some suggestions, please hit me in the comments section. I'm only a bloke having a go. We all make mistakes. I do not know everything in the world, nor does no one. So we're all here to share some knowledge. So if you have some suggestions, please do suggest them before things can potentially go wrong. The wiring on the passenger side of the car has been completed by Miller. It runs to the driver's headlight. I'm still yet to get some LED globes. I've now been working my way through this loom, which branches off. This is actually a branch for inside the car. This goes to shifter, ignition switch. What else we got there? The laser ride height sensor starts from there. Whole bunch of stuff which I'll slowly work out. As I said, I don't love wiring, but I am making my way through it. And another job I just ticked off the list was swapping out the spring in the Go Fast Bits EX50 Wastegate. So these come standard with a 13 PSI spring. I pulled it apart and swapped out a 7 PSI spring, and while I had the gate apart, I also drilled and tapped a port into the top of the gate for dome pressure. This is for the CO2 control. I've actually got the sensor remote mounted, so I'm going to run some Raceworks line from the top of the gate down to this sensor. It basically tells us what pressure is inside the dome, and then we can actively add or decrease CO2 pressure to the top of the gate to effectively change our boost pressure. This needs to get refitted now. I've also got the CO2 bottle mounted up under the dash. That was done by Geordie and Lucas. It is in a bit of a inconvenient location, but it is hidden, which is kind of what I was after. Reality is I just need to check the bottle pressure, and if I'm going to a race weekend, make sure the bottle is full. I'm only using it for CO2 control on the gate. I'm not using it for shift or anything else, so it should last quite a while. I just have to be mindful of the pressure before I go racing for a weekend. So that's mounted on the roll cage using a roll cage mount, and something I didn't know I could get was also these bad boys from Haltech. And you may have seen I've got the ECU just zip tied onto the roll cage, and that is because they're actually going to be mounted using these. So this is the PD16 mount. So that screws to the back of the PD16, and that's our roll cage mount. And we've got one also for the Nexus. So my job now is to fit these up and actually finalise the position for the PD16 and the Nexus R5. I think I mentioned at the start of the episode, Miller has actually done all the power and grounds for the Nexus and the PD16, so they also need to get kind of tidied up and fitted. Just ticking things off the list and hopefully getting this thing closer to first start. As I said, this will be running by the end of this episode, and just got to hook into all those little jobs that no one else wants to come around and do but me. So get it done and then turn the key. Actually, I've got to get that key coded from Ian, Let Me In Locksmiths. I'll give him a call now. Way better than zip ties. I have found myself a dash cluster surround, but I have not picked it up yet, so I've just kind of screwed the dash in there for the moment. This is a Mako Motorsports surround for the UC10. They do make them for IC7, and they also make surrounds for many different makes and models. So thanks to the crew at Mako Motorsports, top quality fitment, absolutely bang on. This wiring loom can actually be installed. I've got the pedal plugged in. I'm hoping that I've got those wires around the right way because I know that can be messed up. Pedal A, pedal B. And yeah, heaps of progress. So I'm really stoked. This came out really well and nice and tidy. Now I've just got to run this through the grommet and work with this on the outside of the guard. The Haltech UC10 dash and keypads communicate to the ECU via the CAN network. Haltech do supply the cables required for install, but instead I've made up a custom daisy chain cable that connects the dash and keypads on one CAN channel. The wiring under the dash and branch out to the guard is almost finalised, so it's time to mount up the centre console and permanently mount the shifter. Shifter installed. Now we're just going to hook up the cable. It was a little bit short, but we are just stretching it out a little bit and going to make it work. I've got my mate Westy around too, helping me out. He's been an absolute legend. Pretty well just, hey, can you do this? And he gets it done to the best standard you've ever worked with. So good. Look at that EL Falcon. Ooh-wee. We just made the cable pop out on this side away from tail shaft and exhaust. Usually I would put some heat sheath over this, but being that it's nowhere near the exhaust, I'm not going to worry. And it now actually lines up perfectly. We were 200 mil short, but we're just stretching it a little bit and it's made it work. Okay, first, now go back to second. And now go to neutral. Oh, I love it. Perfect, brother. Thanks, man. The cockpit's taking shape. I've got the shifter mounted. It is now adjusted, so that is one job we've ticked off the list. A couple of weeks ago, we've also got the steering column sorted. When I was down at World Time Attack, my mate George sold me this steering wheel adapter, and that's a weld-on thing. Mr. Parker's shed came around and helped me bust out the TIG. And now we're fitting up the Raceworks steering wheel. These are a relatively new item from Raceworks, same as the seats too. These come in dished or a kind of a straight, not dished, is that what you'd say? The dished works well for my stature if I'm sitting in the car, and pretty well. I'm going to put some trans brake and creep button on here so that I don't have to take any hands off the steering wheel. This is a shifter solenoid down here. So basically we can select first, the solenoid will energize and it holds it. And then when you over race timer, this will shift to second just under the action of the spring. So I suppose a cheaper way rather than going air shift. I can also fit an air shift solenoid with CO2, but as I said, I don't really want to do that. This should work perfectly fine. And for street driving, I can tuck that away down there. So yeah, sweet. I'll bolt this one on, and then not even too sure what else I'm going to move on to. We've made heaps of progress under the engine bay. We've got nitrous solenoid hooked up. That's plumbs to the back of the car. We have done some wiring up underneath there too. Still haven't finished off the guard here yet, but I'm slowly making progress. And while Westy was around today too, he's installed the glove box and everything. I'm really stoked. It just worked out. I just got to get a Sony Apple CarPlay head unit, and KEVO is full street car. Note to self, check that the drain bung is installed in the diff before you put oil in it. God damn it.
No and no.
It's been a massive week and KEVO is taking shape. I've got the magic yellow Haltech cable out. That's because for the first time I'm about to connect with the Nexus. All of the Haltech calibration and setting up the base map has been done not on the ECU. You can actually power the ECU with this cord without having anything connected, which is what we're going to do first. Probably do a firmware update and we'll start plugging the ECU in. I've got power, I've got ground, everything that needs the engine to run is hooked up. There's a bunch of random stuff like CO2 solenoids, dome pressure, front right shock travel, wheel speed sensor, laser ride height. None of that's done yet. I wanted to get the essentials done first before Kai comes around, and he's due to arrive any second. I did get on the blower to Al, and Al may come down for a yarn too. He's had a lot to do with the car and it seems rude not to have him around. I'm feeling very confident though. I've double checked my work with the multimeter and everything is looking good. So we'll connect up the ECU and start configuring a few more things. I've had a massive week and now I'm stressing. First starts are always nerve-wracking. I've double checked my work. I'm hoping that everything that I've wired is okay. Miller's very talented. I believe in him. Everything he's wired is schmicky mouse. And now we've got the crew around, including special guest, Mr. Allen, come down to the shed for a lemon squash. And we are going to go through the process of firing this thing up. As I said at the start of last time we saw KEVO, Miller and I actually started the base map. So we have configured, for the most part, almost everything, but Kai, because he is a very skilled bloke too, will obviously go through and double check everything. I've got a list of what sensors go where, so we have to calibrate each sensor as we go. I haven't hooked everything up. There's still CO2, shock travel, laser ride height, all the stuff that is for the track. I haven't wired that yet because it wasn't needed at this time. We have got engine oil in the car. The transmission is full. It is still leaking. Don't know what I'm doing wrong there. And we have diff oil in the back. And we're just throwing some water in the cooling system. Do a run just with just bare water to begin with. Just clear out the schmutz. And I'll dump it at a later date. We have a ignition lead on cylinder number 1 for timing. It's just so easy way to hook up the timing light. And what else have we got? Dash is hooked up via CAN. Keypads are hooked up via CAN. What am I missing? I'm missing a beer in my hand. I'm really nervous. Obviously you stress out, but the guy's laughing. Kai does this every single day.
How you doing, bro?
Good.
Yeah? How's your day today?
All right. Just doing some dynoing with Kai.
How much power did we make?
Enough for a little tiny car
Sick.
in the rain.
Oh, no pano, bro.
Sucks to be you, bro.
You welded it!
Can't be true.
And this one too! I put you on the insurance policy as a designated driver.
I'm just a test pilot.
Are you going to drive it one day?
Probably not.
E1 you were saying for the fuel pump?
Yeah, BD16, yeah. Kai asked what cams are in it. I said, I think 282s, but hang on, let me go back and check the video. The real truth behind a 1200 horsepower Toyota 2JZ, just go back and watch the video we did with Golby, and sure enough, Kelford, 282s intake, 286 exhaust, confirmed. We also checked this to see the tone wheel on the crank to see if it was a 12 or a 36. So, another handy thing, go back and watch a video. The power of being a YouTuber.
It's always catalogued.
Sick.
I just killed it, yeah.
Thought I could smell something before. Smells like a...
It's hard to put that smoke back in.
Smells like a trans brake solenoid or something.
That harness there is going down to transmission, so yep. So theoretically
That's a bit of a bad time. I think the trans brake solenoid's been on for like the last 15-20 minutes and we let the smoke out. Nah, the smoke was the wiring loom melting. Tell us why the smoke came out, Kai. What
Basically, one of the pull-ups wasn't assigned on one of the trans brake buttons. So
Yeah.
what was happening is the ECU, when the power was turned on, it thought the trans brake button was being held, which obviously then it just does what it's told. ECU just does what it's told.
Yeah.
So it thinks the trans brake button being held, so it puts the trans brake solenoid on. But then, as we know, the wiring that goes to the solenoid, they pull a lot of current, and if they stay on for a very long time, like 10 minutes, the wiring catches on fire.
Damn it.
Yeah. It's, normally don't be on the trans brake for that long. But yeah, that is normal. Like realistically, I guess maybe if you wanted to be able to be on the trans brake forever, you would wire it with really, really heavy wiring that could flow 20 amps constantly without catching on fire. But typically, the way that a car like this is wired is that it uses a light gauge wire, which can supply 20 amps for a short period of time without an issue. But yeah, if it's accidentally on because something like that happens, then yeah, you're going to burn it up. There's nothing wrong with the solenoid. That's just how much current they draw. Lots.
Sounds like that exhaust is touching the floor.
Did I do that?
I don't know.
When you crank it, just try and tell me what it is actually.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Cranking.
Yep.
Yeah, just gotta hold it in.
Is that on backwards? Is there power in that battery?
Go again, Tom.
Oh, there we go. Is it 14.6? Let's see if we got keep it on there.
Yeah, but then this is just not a test function, so I'm still not sure why we don't have any start. We're going back to the... Alright, well, do you want to check it at the other side of that DC plug just in case? And then now it should just be at least the same. Oh, I'll unplug that thing.
So we went to check for some timing and there was no spark on cylinder 1. We've been doing a little bit of diagnosis, swapping around wiring. And there is a short circuit between the coil harness and the ECU, which most likely is my stuff up through the bulkhead.
Open circuit.
What did I say? That one, open circuit, yep. Yeah, it might be my stuff up through the bulkhead or potentially the... No, that's a different loom, isn't it? The coil loom's different to the...
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so Matt North's definitely my stuff up then. And now Paulie's arrived. Hey!
Ollie!
The work finished or?
Bring it in.
Oh, the work hasn't finished?
I better leave then and come back later.
Yep.
Wait, I got your finger.
I got one.
I got one.
$17.
We've got 4 pounds of fuel pressure, so it is doing something. We need to keep going.
Gonna wind it in maybe or?
No. It's
keep
like
wash
it
out.
hasn't purged all the shit out.
25% short-term fuel trim.
Yeah.
crank it.
Well, that's cool. We got fuel pressure.
One pressure at a time.
Doing one pressure at a time. It's so needy.
Little bit of a stuff around, but apparently that's what makes it entertaining. There's crew here hanging out.
More for you, we feel bad.
Well,
For those playing at home, the fuel pump was backwards.
the fuel pump was backwards, a mechanical pump, so that was one stuff up. There's no inline like feed pump for the mechanical pump either, so we're just relying on the one pump in the back, and it doesn't have enough RPM when you crank it to actually get fuel pressure. So now we have fuel pressure. That was just a little bottle, and we have no oil pressure. We verified it visually with oil out of the turbo. I've already checked that actually last week, and we believe the sensor's actually failed. So luckily I've got a spare. We're going to bung that in. What if that doesn't work?
That doesn't work.
Well,
You add a little.
maybe I don't know.
Go back to the visual test.
Yeah, we can confirm.
Hold your finger over that line and see if you can hold it back.
But all was going good, and it ran for 5 seconds, and it sounds good. So I'm stoked. I'm feeling a little bit less stressy now that it's running. So ginger lemon squash.
She's warm.
Want me to turn on the bubbles? Oh yeah.
What have we found? We found a couple of things. We found no bloody spark output to number one cylinder. That was a good little trip down diagnostic lane, wasn't it? We got it sorted. We ended up running a wire across the windscreen and in through the door.
I might just fairy tape that and leave it now.
Yeah, well, I think that's what everyone was suggesting. We were just going to say we just stick this like this and call that good. I'll definitely cut a skid with that. And then what else do we do? We got it fired up.
Oh,
Ran
that
up to
radiator's
10.
hot. Oh, shit.
Yeah, we got thermo fans work.
Sweet. Thanks for coming, man.
We've got a handful of little things to clean up for the dyno, but that's okay because it's a little while away yet.
Yep.
And yeah, then we'll shake it down. But everything seems to. We got everything to the point where it works. So yeah, it runs. Looks good.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate your help, dude.
No worries,
Really
that's
do. Appreciate you coming around.
Kevo is alive. I'm so very thankful for my mates for coming around. Kai, Miller has put in so many hours on this thing. Al popped around. Geordie, Tom, Josh, Paulie, other Josh. assemble the mates to make shit happen, and we have one running KEVO. The car is far from driving on the road yet. We did bleed the brakes up this afternoon. I was a bit ambitious to maybe, I don't know, potentially get it moving under its own power, but it's going to stay on the hoist because we have to work through a list. There's a few things that aren't working yet. As Kai mentioned, there's a few things to sort out. Some of the stuff doesn't really matter. The laser ride height sensor, the flex fuel sensor in the back is not working. The flex fuel sensor is actually from my Crusader from 8 years ago. So it may be buggered. So I'm going to actually swap that out for a new one. So I'll work through the list. The dyno is in 2 weeks, which I'm now realizing is going to come around very quickly. So there's a lot to get done on the car before then. So you'll see KEVO on the dyno in the future. I will have panels on the car, albeit they will be mismatched because I won't have the car painted by then. But we'll get the car on the dyno and hopefully make that 1200 horsepower figure that KEVO was originally built to do. We are going just to see Kai. I did want to tee up a day with the Hoff. Unfortunately, the Hoff is a busy man and Kai slipped me in on a day that he had free. So we'll make it work with Kai. Potentially in the future, we'll go down and see the Hoff, but who knows? On the dyno, stuff may go wrong, and that's why I made these hats, because as you just saw tonight, shit can go wrong. You plan for everything to go right, and it just doesn't happen. If you want to support the show, well, if you want to pay for KEVO's fuel bill and help me keep the lights on in the shed, jump onto the merch store, grab yourself a hat. These are back in stock. They did sell out. They've been a very popular hat, and you too can take the piss. My name's Woody. This is the Skid Factory. Drive safe and enjoy the moment. I'll see you next week. Cheers. This is a massive milestone for the channel. It was actually 2 years ago that episode 1 of KEVO first aired on YouTube. Thank you to the awesome people that support the Skid Factory via Patreon and the epic companies that sponsor the channel. Also, all of our brand partners that have supplied parts for KEVO. Thanks for watching. Drive safe. What's for dinner? Roast chicken.
How scary do they look, eh?
Is he paying rent? Welcome to Australia. I've actually never seen...
Aren't they the most deadliest spider in the world?
No.
Yeah.
Is that a daddy long leg?
Yeah, they are, but they can't sting you.
That's what every school kid says.
This is actually a 2JZ camshaft out of KEVO when we built the engine originally. What's his name? Comment below what we should name the spider.
What are you guys doing in there?
I got a little tom thumb. I'm just pumping the brake fluid. Just trying to think of what it was called. I need another bottle though.